big time Big Ten showdown in Cali this Saturday. Last season when Michigan and USC met, it was their first regular season matchup since 1958. Michigan won that game 27-24 on a go-ahead last-minute TD. Now this Saturday, it's the Wolverines, ranked 15th in the country, up against a team that's also 4-1, and those are the Trojans. And we brought up last year's game and that 27-24 final score, and Michigan getting the win despite just 32 passing yards, but that's why running for 290 goes a long way to getting a dub. Almost the complete opposite for the side of USC, rushing for 96 yards and throwing for 283. So we keep that in mind as we now get set for this Saturday afternoon. And we're pleased now to welcome in Sam Webb, who covers Michigan for 24/7 Sports, and Ryan Abraham, also with 24/7 and covering USC. Big Ten CFP implications here, you figure, for both sides, and you look at the opportunity to win and to win out, and you're probably exactly where you want to be at the end of the year. Ryan, you first here. How much weight and pressure is on this game here with both those things still at play?
Yeah, it's huge, I think, for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. USC still has road games against Notre Dame and Oregon coming up. And, you talked in the whole offseason about how they need to improve after going 13-11 the last two regular seasons. That Illinois game, which, start the season, you felt like a top 10 team on the road, but it was a very winnable game that USC wasn't able to take care of business there. So I think this Michigan game is really important. If you lose this one, you're staring at 4-3 after starting 4-0. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Lincoln Riley and the Trojans to get a win this Saturday against Michigan.
Zach, this really, I think, sets the hue for the rest of the season. I think that if Michigan can win this game, you got a really tough Washington team coming into Ann Arbor, but not to say they coast into Ohio State, but boy, the outlook really looks as smooth as you could possibly be. This really shapes up well for Michigan to continue to grow their young quarterback the rest of the way. Their defense won't face nearly as stiff of a challenge on the road the rest of the way. This is just a huge, huge sort of statement game for them after their, last maybe huge road challenge at Oklahoma. I think they were pleased with how they responded on the road against Nebraska. But this is a much more potent offense, a better quarterback, better receiving core. So a higher hurdle to clear. And if they can do it, I think they'll feel like this is a real statement for them as they talk about their playoff candidacy.
Sam, you brought up the idea of Michigan's defense, and that's what I want to get to next, because the idea of slowing down USC's offense has to seem a little bit daunting, because the Trojans are first in FBS in yards per play, second in yards per game, and third in points per game at just under 49 every time they step out there. How difficult of a task will this Saturday be?
Extremely difficult. You're talking about a team that not only has a quarterback that is very efficient, but now, unlike last year, you have a quarterback that can present a threat with his legs. He really tests you with his ability to be that extra guy that you have to account for, which they didn't have to worry about last year. So I think the name of the game will be getting in his face, pressuring him, making them be methodical. Don't let them beat you with big plays. Michigan has been good at that this year, keeping the ball in front. Don't let the teams go on short drives. So can they force USC to be methodical? 8, 9, 10 play drives. If they can do that, that'll be their friend. And run the football on offense. Make your offense be part of your defense. Run the football, keep their offense off the field. I think that was part of Illinois' plan. That was very effective in helping them get that victory. Michigan is going to try to take a page out of that book.
For USC, it's funny that they just hardly punt the ball. And I think if you're never punting, you're never putting that punt team out there, probably some good things are happening on offense. You mentioned some of the statistical analysis there. I think for Jade Mayava, who really was a turnover machine in the last 4 games last year, 7 turnovers in his 4 starts, to have only 1 turnover through 5 games, I think he's really been the straw that's stirring this drink and playing at an elite level, a lot of the level you've seen from some of the Lincoln Riley quarterbacks that have been #1 overall picks and won Heisman trophies and all that. I'm really surprised as how mature he's become and how well he's been able to take care of the ball. And they've been able to score with big plays, but also pick up a lot of third downs and move down the field. It just seems like when it gets to third and sometimes fourth down, they just don't want to come off the field. They're just an aversion to getting that punt team coming out there. So, at Illinois, they had a couple turnovers. It was Jaden Maiava's first turnover. But if they're able to keep that going against a much tougher Michigan defense and just not put the punt team out there, I think they're going to, it's going to bode well for USC on Saturday.
Sam, in the lead up to this, we showed kind of the stats from the game last year, and we saw how many rushing yards Michigan was able to rack up. They're back to their old tricks again this year. The most rushing TDs was 17 of them in their first 5 games of a season since 2022. How do they make sure that going into Saturday, I'll say that justice can keep getting served?
Great. That's an outstanding segue there, Zach. I think it's going to be different how they run it against them this year. Justice Haynes has been a revelation, terrific running back. I think Michigan has found a way to get outside with him. A lot of outside zone. That's a new part of their offense, even though they didn't run that play last week. But he has been electric running the football, over 100 yards in every game, a 40-yard explosive play at least in every game. And so that's going to be a big component. I mentioned in the last exchange that running the football as part of your offense as part of your defense is going to be a big part of the equation. You look at the Illinois game, they had a porous offensive line. They were a team that was struggling to protect their quarterback. They had surrendered 7 sacks in that Indiana game, and USC was leading the nation in sacks heading into that contest with Illinois. They sacked Illinois 1 time. The reason was Illinois was able to run the football, which brings us to Michigan. Running the football is going to be a key with Justice Haynes, but also with Bryce Underwood. So I think those two components, getting outside with Justice Haynes and, of course, Jordan Marshall, but also with Bryce Underwood, those bluff zones, getting outside, getting Bryce on the edge, I think that's going to be key. Running those two components, using your offense as part of your defense, putting up those rush yards. Maybe not as many as last year because they're going to throw the football more, but at least 150 yards rushing, I think is going to be key for Michigan.
Haynes is just the second Michigan player in the last 30 seasons with 100 or more rushing yards and 1 or more rushing TD in each of their first 5 games. Denard Robinson, the only other one back in 2010 to go back to that. Ryan, I go to you here because in your very first answer to my first question, you brought up Lincoln Riley. And I'm wondering maybe what's the temperature, what's the vibe check around him right now with the program? Because you look at it, obviously you need a win, and he's just 4-11 against AP-ranked opponents with USC. Could things get hot if he loses?
I mean, with the contract and the amount of years and how much would be owed, I don't think it can get that hot of a hot seat. But as far as the fans go, I think this is a really important game for him. I think looking at that Illinois game, the toughness would come up sometimes, and for Brett Bielema's team to lose by 53 points and then really play well, and like Sam said, run the football against USC, not allow Luke Altmaier to get sacked. It was more of a Big Ten game, and I think for Lincoln Riley, it's sort of important to put that top offense out there, to give them opportunities to score and try to make it look like a more Pac-12 game. If Michigan's going to run for 300 yards on USC, they're not going to win the football game. So I think just showing that USC belongs in this conference, they can get a big win. Maybe USC's biggest win in the Big Ten right now is Nebraska at home last year. This would qualify as that. We've seen UCLA beat Penn State, and last year Washington beat Michigan. USC needs one of those big signature wins, and I think it's going to help Lincoln Riley's cause if he can get it. And I think this is the one you really need if you're Lincoln Riley, because of the loss at Illinois and then knowing the schedule ahead. This is one that's one of those must-haves, and I think it will get some of the USC fans off his back a little bit if they're able to win on Saturday.
Now we get to, do they get the win or not? And I ask you first, Sam, who wins on Saturday?
Yeah, listen, I think the blueprint was really laid very well. I think that Illinois game was a great reference point to see what you need to do if you're Michigan. You got to run the football. But I think they have also discovered a pathway to balance. You have found your number 1 receiver in Donovan McCulley. You have found another explosive element in the passing game, the guy opposite him and your freshman wideout, Andrew Marsh. And so now if you can target them a bit and find a way, if you're Bryce Underwood, to incorporate them enough to keep them honest, because they're going to load up to try to stop the run and hit a few shot plays, which I think is going to be key and achievable in this contest. Michigan has got to get in the 30s. I think they will. I think they'll run for close to 200 yards in this game. Not quite as many as they did last year, but I think it'll be enough to win on the road like they've been tested at Oklahoma, tested in Nebraska. I think that'll have Bryce Underwood ready and prepared. I have Michigan winning this game 37-31.
And for me, I think it's one of those USC has to circle the wagons for this one. They know, I think everyone in that building know it's a must win. They have probably the best unit out there. USC's offense has been really elite. Just the defense has not played as well. I mean, they had Michigan beat on the road last year if they just don't give up a super long run where Michigan wasn't throwing the ball. Now with Bryce Underwood, they actually have, two dimensions of the offense instead of just one. But I think this USC offense is going to be able to put enough points on the board to another close game here. But I think USC takes care of this one at home, something in the 34-31 range.
34-31, the final there. The line currently USC favored by 2.5 points, so we might have a very close one Saturday night at 7:30. Looking forward to it. Sam, Webb, and Ryan Abraham, thank you for joining.